The Cleveland Browns fan base has seen some rough Sundays, but what happened during Shedeur Sanders' first home game hit differently. This wasn't just another disappointing result or another reminder of how unpredictable the NFL can be. It felt like something deeper, something that exposed a real fracture inside the franchise. Fans showed up expecting a turning point. Instead, they left with more questions than answers. From the first drive, the atmosphere in the stadium didn't match the game plan on the field. Cleveland finally has a young quarterback with rare talent and confidence. The franchise sold the idea of a fresh direction, new energy, and a dynamic future. But as the game unfolded, it wasn't the rookie holding the team back. It was the approach surrounding him. The play calling looked cautious and outdated, almost as if the Browns were trying to protect Sanders instead of letting him lead the offense. And the result was an offense that never got a chance to breathe. That's what caught everyone off guard. Sanders wasn't the problem. He showed poise, accuracy, and flashes of the player Cleveland believed in when they brought him in. But with every handoff into a stacked defensive front and every conservative decision on third down, the frustration grew. Fans watched the opportunity slip away in real time. They watched an offense capable of more get stuck in neutral. By the time the game ended, the scoreboard told only part of the story. The bigger takeaway was the message that seemed to come from the sidelines. The coaching staff didn't fully unleash the player they invested in. And that raised a question that echoed across social media, talk shows, and even inside the locker room. Did the Browns just waste a moment that was supposed to be the beginning of something new? Because for the first time in a long time, the Browns didn't just lose a game. They lost momentum. They lost belief. And they might have revealed a problem that goes far beyond one Sunday. Before the game even started, the expectations surrounding Shedeur Sanders in Cleveland were sky high. Fans, analysts, and even the organization spoke as if the Browns had finally turned the page on years of instability. This wasn't another temporary starter or a short-term experiment. Sanders was brought in to be the guy, the quarterback who changes the conversation about Cleveland football and ends the cycle of constant resets. The promise was simple: a new system, a new identity, and a new direction built around a young player with the talent to take this team forward. That's why so many people were stunned when the reality looked so different from the idea. The offense that took the field didn't resemble the type of team that just landed a dynamic, modern quarterback. Instead of an aggressive attack that highlighted Sanders' strengths, fans saw a cautious approach that looked more like something from an older era of football. The coaching staff leaned heavily on the running game, short yardage plays, and conservative decisions that limited how often Sanders could take command of the offense. It wasn't just a strategic difference, it felt like a philosophical one. And that contrast created the biggest shock of the night. Because Cleveland didn't come into this season rebuilding from scratch. They added pieces. They developed youth. They brought in Sanders with the belief that he could inject energy into a franchise that has spent years searching for stability. The excitement was real. The potential was real. Fans had every reason to believe the Browns were stepping into a new chapter. But as the game unfolded, the gap between the expectation and the execution became impossible to ignore. The promise of a bold direction collided with a play style that seemed, once the game kicked off, it didn't take long for the storyline to reveal itself. From the opening drives, you could feel the tension between potential and execution. Cleveland had the quarterback they wanted under center, and you could see flashes of what Shedeur Sanders is capable of. His footwork looked clean, his throws were sharp, and he showed the poise of a player who doesn't get rattled easily. But the opportunities for him to showcase those strengths were limited, and that's where the game began to slip away. The final score, 26-8, only scratches the surface. The deeper issue came from how each possession unfolded. Sanders finished with a solid stat line for a rookie. 16 completions on 25 attempts, 149 yards, and a touchdown. He avoided turnovers and stood strong against pressure. But that's also where the questions began. Only 25 passing attempts for a quarterback who was brought in to inject life into the offense? In a league where teams routinely throw 40 or more times, it was noticeably conservative. Meanwhile, Cleveland leaned heavily on the run game. 30-plus rushing attempts against the San Francisco defense that's known for shutting down the ground game raised eyebrows everywhere. Fans pointed out how predictable the play calling became. First down run, second down run, third and long. A passing situation created by the offense's own decisions. It wasn't the kind of rhythm that allows a quarterback to take control or build momentum. Across the field, San Francisco took a different approach. Brock Purdy posted a nearly identical stat line, yet the 49ers' offense looked more fluid. The contrast wasn't talent, it was philosophy. They trusted their quarterback to make plays in key moments. They used misdirection, quick throws, motion, and creative looks to move the ball. The Browns felt more reserved, even when the situation called for something bolder. Browns approached the game strategically. This is where fans and analysts immediately started pointing fingers, because the decisions being made didn't seem to match the strengths of the players on the field. Cleveland came into the season knowing they finally had a quarterback who could throw with confidence, escape pressure, and make the passing game feel dangerous. Yet the offense leaned in the opposite direction. It wasn't just the number of rushing attempts, it was the timing and predictability. The Browns consistently ran the ball straight into a San Francisco defense built to shut those plays down. Even when it was clear that the 49ers were stacking the box, Cleveland stayed committed to the same approach. The result wasn't just a series of short gains. It created long third-down situations, forced Sanders into obvious passing downs, and let the defense control the tempo. Instead of making the opponent adjust, Cleveland was the one reacting all night. Fans didn't criticize the run game itself. The frustration came from the lack of balance. The NFL has shifted toward offenses that keep defenses guessing with creative passing concepts, quick throws, and flexible formations. The Browns rarely showed that kind of variety. Each drive started to feel like a repeat of the last one. By the second half, everyone watching could sense the pattern. The 49ers defense certainly did. That's where the strategy felt disconnected from what the team needed. Sanders wasn't struggling when he threw. He completed passes efficiently and kept the offense moving when given the opportunity. The issue was the limited window he was given to build momentum. There were moments where the passing game looked ready to open up, yet the play calling pulled it back. Compare that with other young quarterbacks around the league who are trusted to take chances. Teams that lean into their quarterback's strengths tend to grow faster. Even if mistakes happen, the upside is worth it. For Cleveland, the opposite seemed to happen. The strategy felt more focused on avoiding risk than creating opportunity. That approach slowed everything down. Drives stalled, possessions were wasted, and an offense with real potential never truly threatened the opposing defense. The failure wasn't the talent on the field. It was the reluctance to let that talent dictate the game. What made this so noticeable wasn't just the plays themselves. It was the bigger message behind them. The Browns didn't lose because they didn't have the tools. They lost because the plan never gave those tools a chance to shine. And that's what left fans wondering whether the strategy was holding the team back more than any opponent. The most confusing part of the night wasn't a particular play or a mistake. It was the constant contradiction between what the Browns claimed they wanted and what they actually did on the field. Cleveland finally has a quarterback with the skill set to change games. Shedeur Sanders has the accuracy, the timing, and the confidence that coaches say they want in a young passer. Yet the game plan felt like it was built around protecting him instead of letting him lead. That's where the mixed messages really stood out. Sanders showed poise every time he got the chance to throw. He moved well in the pocket, delivered on-time passes, and didn't panic under pressure. Those are the traits that separate average quarterbacks from franchise ones. But instead of building momentum around those strengths, the offense kept pulling back into a safer, more conservative approach. It felt like the team wanted the benefits of having an aggressive quarterback without actually trusting him to take over. That hesitation didn't just show up on stat sheets. It was visible in the rhythm of the game. When the Browns opened things up, the offense looked more dangerous. When they tightened up, San Francisco controlled the tempo. And every time Cleveland leaned away from Sanders' strengths, the offense lost its spark. The potential was right there, but the trust wasn't. Fans noticed it immediately. Analysts pointed it out, and it created a bigger question than the final score. If the Browns believe Sanders is their future, why does the offense look unsure about letting him grow into that role? This goes beyond one game. Young quarterbacks need systems that push them forward, not ones that try to protect them from mistakes. They need confidence from the sideline as much as they need skill. Sanders showed he was ready for more responsibility. The team just didn't hand it to him. That's the real issue at the center of this conversation. The talent is obvious. The coaching message is not. And until those two things line up, Cleveland will continue to look stuck. Passing game forward. Fans wanted to see signs of progress, not just a system that looked like it was trying to prevent mistakes. The concern isn't about one loss. It's about the direction the team chooses to follow from here. If Cleveland wants Sanders to evolve into a true leader of the offense, they need a structure that allows him to take responsibility and make plays. Young quarterbacks develop by being trusted in real situations, not by being held back. That's why so many fans and analysts reacted strongly to how the offense was managed. It wasn't the score that bothered people. It was the hesitation. It was the cautious approach in moments when the team needed bold decisions. But the reason this matters for the future goes even deeper. It touches the entire identity of the Browns. For years, the organization has cycled through coaches, systems, and quarterbacks. Now, they finally have a player who looks capable of leading a long term. Between the quarterback they have and the system they're still afraid to fully commit to, this game wasn't just an isolated setback or another entry in the long list of frustrating Cleveland losses. It raised questions that go far beyond a single Sunday. When a franchise drafts a quarterback like Shedeur Sanders, they're not just adding another player to the roster. They're choosing a direction, a philosophy, and a new identity for the future. Sanders represents the kind of quarterback who can shift a franchise's culture, and the Browns have spent years searching for exactly that. That's why this moment matters so much. The NFL is built on momentum and development. When a young quarterback takes the field, every snap becomes part of the bigger story of who they can become. For Sanders, this game should have been a chance to grow, build chemistry with the offense, and push the prize. Rebuild. The real question is whether the coaching philosophy will rise to meet that opportunity or slow it down. Teams that treat their franchise quarterbacks like game managers rarely unlock their full potential. Teams that adapt tend to take big leaps quickly. What this game exposed is something the Browns need to address sooner rather than later. If they want Sanders to be the face of the franchise, the offense has to reflect that belief. It has to evolve. It has to match the strengths of the player they invested in. Because talent alone doesn't define a quarterback's future. The coaching, the confidence, and the system around him matter just as much. That's why this moment isn't going away. It's a turning point. The Browns can use it to pivot, grow, and modernize their identity. Or they can fall back into familiar habits. And that choice could shape the next era of Cleveland football. Energize your offense. Why not build around that strength? This isn't about placing blame on one person or one game. It's about the direction of the entire organization. Teams that thrive in today's NFL don't play cautiously. They play to their strengths, they trust their quarterback, and they push the game forward. The Browns have a chance to be one of those teams. The only thing standing in the way is the decision to fully commit to that future. So here's the real takeaway. Cleveland isn't missing potential. They're one strategic shift away from unlocking it. The fans know it. Analysts are talking about it. And now, what happened on the field wasn't just another rough outing. It revealed something deeper about where this team is headed and what they need to decide moving forward. Cleveland finally has a quarterback who gives the fan base hope, and you could feel the excitement building the moment Shedeur stepped onto the field. But the frustration wasn't about mistakes or growing pains. It was about how the opportunity was managed. The Browns had the tools to open the offense up, yet they leaned into a style that felt hesitant and outdated. That's why this moment hit fans so hard. For years, people in Cleveland have been waiting for the franchise to take a bold leap toward modern football. This game showed how close they might be, but also how easily momentum can slip away when the system doesn't adapt. Sanders showed composure, talent, and flashes of the player he can become. That's why so many people walked away with the same question. If you have a quarterback who can... The defensive front from San Francisco didn't make things easy either. Sanders was sacked 3 times, but a lot of that pressure came from situations where the defense could anticipate what was coming. When the offense becomes predictable, the opposing defense gets to play faster. They did exactly that. By the time Cleveland got into a rhythm, the game was already slipping away. Every drive felt like a battle uphill. Every score felt like it required twice as much effort as it should. And the more cautious the Browns became, the more that frustration grew. When the final whistle hit, the scoreboard showed a loss. But the bigger takeaway was how Cleveland approached the night. It wasn't about whether Sanders could perform. It was about whether the offense was ready to let him. And that's the moment fans couldn't ignore. The most revealing part of the night wasn't the final score or even the stats. It was how the organization has to decide what comes next. Because if the offense changes course, this could be the turning point everyone points back to. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you believe the Browns need to adjust their approach to unleash Shedeur's full potential? Should the coaching philosophy evolve to match the talent on the roster? Drop your thoughts below and let's open up the conversation, because the future of this franchise depends on what they do next.